Welcome. You are about to take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition show. For the next hour, allow her to prepare you in becoming a magnet for a profound love-infused relationship by identifying and focusing on solutions through love. Awaken the light within and let your essence shine. And now, here's Deborah Beauvais on Love by Intuition, all part of the Dream Vision 7 radio network.
Welcome, everyone. Bonjour, mes amis. And yes, here I am, Deborah Beauvais, founder and owner of the Dream Vision 7 radio network. If you're tuning in for the first time, we are a Boston-based, fully producing internet radio station with all the bells and whistles. You can listen to us wherever you are in the world. You can access our apps. You can ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 radio, listen in the car, all kinds of good ways that you can hear this show. And check us out. It's Dream Visions, all one word with an S on the end, the number 7, radio.com. Well, I have an exceptional guest with me, and there's so much information. I already know that we're going to have her back, and she should have her own show. But let me just tell you a little bit about her. The topic is time to break your own heart, remembering who you are and why you're here. My guest is Deneen Joyner. She is the 7th daughter and the 7th generation Indigenous soul healer and the heir of her Native American ancestors' ancient Indigenous soul healing practices, bringing spirit-led soul healing, sacred God-given gifts, and impeccable counsel into the 21st century. Deneen is an international spiritual teacher, a nationally award-winning author with a bachelor's in psychology, and a master's degree in adult education, along with 30 years of previous social work experience and working directly with children and families. So this young woman has opened up her heart to everything that she is, and she's working her truth and the gifts, the God-given gifts that she has received. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Deneen.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm just looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, and you are so welcome, and I would like to share that Gina Maza actually introduced us, and yes. I cannot be more grateful because I feel such a connection with you. There's a lot of different things. Even, I have to say, Blackfoot, we were told when we were kids that we were part of that tribe. I don't know if it's true or not, and I haven't had I haven't done the kits that they have, so I don't know for a fact, yes. But that's what we were told. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh. And then with another interesting piece is that your father came from the Nigeria Igbo lost tribe.
Correct.
Yes, and they were a Jewish faith, and my grandfather was a Russian Jew. So there's all these different little strings attached that kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm reading this book and it's an exceptional, and then there's little things that are weaved into my background.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you reading my book. You definitely took it to task and made sure that you read it before our time together today. So I really appreciate you being able to do that.
You're welcome, and I loved it. And so let's get into it. And let's start with your emotional journey and how that all came to be. And you were on the edge of losing your life. And so let's start there and choosing to be, and I love that you actually, I have to commend you for choosing to embrace both your Native American and West African heritage. So go right ahead and tell us, and then what compelled you to write this book?
Yes, so starting from the beginning, like most people, you know, I knew that I had gone through a tremendous amount of tumultuous emotional matters growing up surrounding just childhood emotional pain and trauma through a series of different events throughout my life. And I knew that I was a sensitive child. Number one, because I always sensed and felt things at a higher vibration than my siblings, but also because I was told repeatedly, you know, there was times when, you know, my siblings would tease me because I was crying about, you know, a particular event or watching a program on TV, and I would be crying about that, and everybody else was watching and upset because I'm disturbing their watching because of my tears. And so I started to really realize that I was different first in my own home. And so being around, you know, people who are not as sensitive to things as you are, I think that most children start to recognize that they are different. And so there's a decision unconsciously made at that moment to either continue on the path of being sensitive or to try to withhold your sensitivity and your emotions and your feelings. And so I decided that it was better for me to get along with everybody in my home to withhold the feelings that I was tapping into, the knowings that I sensed, just so that I could be at peace, if you will, temporarily. What I learned in doing that, though, I really wasn't at peace at the end of the day. I was making other people comfortable. But I myself was tapping into really a web of darkness because I was withholding my emotions, which is, I believe, the probably the largest part of who I am and how God's source spirit created me. And so withholding my emotions and sensitivities started, I believe, to take me down a path of depression, and I didn't know that. And so that kind of led me, you know, with just numbing a lot of things that I knew about myself, about others, just so that I could fit in, but not recognizing that God didn't create me to fit in. And so I went throughout, you know, my life growing up using the framework of withholding and numbing. And that's pretty much how I primarily lived my life up until the age of 47, where my book actually starts to detail an event that actually made me come to terms with the fact that I had been living numb, despite the fact that I had been in social work, helping other people with their life.
Right. And that's the part
yes.
that's amazing, that you did so much work with so many people and tuned into exactly what the root of their issue, and yet you were still hanging on to your own emotional pain that protected you.
Yes. Yes, for sure. Yes, I found it to be amazing too, Deborah. I have to say that when the bottom fell out, you know, that's kind of how it felt. It felt like my soul could no longer hold on to, you know, all of the things that I had been successful in hiding and holding on to. And, you know, when the bottom of my soul fell out, I realized that, yes, I had been an incredible actress. That, you know, that I even fooled myself on some fronts that I was okay, you know. there were times when, I tapped into that well of darkness and sadness for sure. But I had, developed these mechanisms of surviving, through these emotions and learning unhealthy ways of showing up. And so it was, during this time frame in 2011 where I was faced with my own dark night of the soul and really recognizing that I didn't really know what to do for myself. Just like you mentioned, I had been very greatly successful in the field of social work, helping children and families maneuver and navigate through their own unfortunate circumstances, but never once really even thinking about my own.
Wow. And so it was a culmination of a number of things, but it was actually when they repossessed your car that brought you into this path of the dark night of the soul. Yes. Tell us about that.
Yes. Prior to that, I have to say that there were signs that something big was about to happen emotionally for me. I can't tell you exactly why I felt that way, but I felt that way. I knew that the things that I had been relying on to keep myself numb and disconnected were coming to an end soon. I started to really just see that the walls were closing in. And like I said in the book that the fat lady was about to sing, and I didn't know what that was going to look like. But, I still was in denial. I still was hoping that I had more time, to escape what I believe that I knew was pending, which was that I needed to face the things that I had been carrying for decades. And so, yes, that fateful evening, my car was repossessed. And in that moment, because I had such pride in having the vehicle in the first place, when that happened, it perpetuated me to awaken. And it was very jarring to me because it literally felt like somebody was repossessing my heart and soul. And so that awakened me. That was what, really, really made me become no longer numb. And so it was a very, very difficult, trying moment in my life. And, and I was made to recognize how I had been living. And so, after living that way for over 4 decades of your life and literally feeling like there had been a deep fall, I didn't know what to do. And so immediately I became distraught and I wanted out. And I felt like that was the only option for me in that moment, was to give up, to give in, and to check out. So share with the listeners what stopped you. I mean, you went all the way to the point of the pills. Yes. What do you feel stopped you? Yes. So what stopped me was a few things. The first was, the realization that I was now, awake for the first time in over 4 decades. When I say awake, I mean that I emotionally could feel everything, where before I could not. And so I knew that this was serious. I knew that that I was facing what I call a destiny decision, which means that I had to succumb to what I was sensing and feeling in that moment of not wanting to be a part of the world anymore, but at the same time knowing that this was happening for a greater reason. And so it was in that moment when I started a conversation with God and was asking him specifically why this was occurring, because I had, really made sure throughout my life that I lived a life where, that I was loving, kind to people, that I was uplifting. And so I thought that I was being punished, and I was questioning God for the moment that I was facing. Why would you bring me to this moment after being so obedient and faithful? Why would you bring me here to wanting to end my life? And so I posed that question, and I also became immediately angry with recognizing that I had always asked him specifically why he had given me those gifts that everybody seemed to be so turned off about, and what made me different. I wanted to know why he had given me these special spiritual gifts. And I felt that he had never given me the answer. And so I screamed at the top of my lungs in the bathroom with a handful of pills and water in the other, why haven't you given me the answer? And so it was in that moment, Deborah, that I recognized and realized it was like my social work hat came on. And I immediately identified that you really don't want to take your life. You really don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't still be angry. You wouldn't be angry in this moment, and you wouldn't still want the answer to why you have these gifts. And so that was a very sobering moment for me to actually acquiesce to the fact that, no, you don't want to take your life. You still want that answer. And because you still want that answer, that means you still want to live.
So do you feel that that was your answer from God, that you still want to live and you want to continue to find your way?
Yes. I believe that wholeheartedly, and, it has proven itself since that time, for sure.
I bet. So looking back, do you feel, because reading it, I just felt it was your sacred awakening, and it was a benevolent experience, even though you're at that point of what you were planning to do.
Yes.
It was a benevolent, sacred experience is what I felt, because you looked yourself in the mirror and you stopped.
Yes. Yes,
I mean, do you realize how powerful that is?
I do. I did then, and I do every day. Yes, because it, like I said, it has proven itself. It has proven itself to be so. That, I truly believe, that was definitely divine intervention, that God knew that I was not going to take my life. He would not have let me end my life, because there was so much more riding and so much more at stake than what Deneen was feeling in that moment.
Yes. Wow. So it's just very moving just to read that and take that in. And I have to say that you have a beautiful way of writing. What's interesting is you've been writing in your journal for years. And the way that you're writing is through that journal.
Yes.
And it's very, for the listeners, it's very from the heart.
Yes.
You can feel the energy. You can feel the, that you're a very special soul with work to be done here on earth. And the way you're writing it, it's a story, and yet it's laced with all this wisdom. So I really want to commend you the second time for the way you're writing, because it's you, and there's only one Deneen, and we can tell how special you are by the way you're writing.
Thank you.
So I thank you for that. So I think it's, before we get into any more, I think it's great if we were to take our break now. And everyone, this is a live show. The phones are open. Bob is in the house. He can put you right through if you have a thought or a question for Deneen or I. And our toll-free number is 833-220-1200. Don't wait until the last minute of the show. 833-220-1200. We will be back in a moment.
Experience a different yet profound healing with Reconnective Healing. Includes yet expands beyond any and all known forms of energy healing. The Reconnective Healing spectrum is comprised of the full healing and evolutionary continuum of energy, light, and information. It allows for healings that are not just physical, not just mental, not just emotional, yet go beyond that to bring healing that includes the evolution of your very being and essence. Deborah Beauvais, trained and certified by world-renowned Dr. Eric Pearl, offers appointment hours at Seekonk Family Chiropractic in Seekonk, Massachusetts. For questions or to set up both distance or local sessions, call Deborah at 508-431-1959. Again, 508-431-1959. Or go to lovebyintuition.com. That's lovebyintuition.com.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
After narrowly surviving the attack on Sandy Hook Elementary, first-grade teacher Caitlin Roy DeBellis was left searching for answers that would never come. Eventually, she chose to focus on questions that could be answered. How do I make sure this tragedy doesn't define us? How do we get our control back? Those two questions led her to found the 501c3 nonprofit organization Classes for Classes. When gifts poured into their classroom, she decided they would help someone else by paying it forward and being kind. This developed into a social network which allows K-8 classrooms to connect so that every student in the United States can learn these crucial lessons. Classes for Classes' mission is to build students' social-emotional intelligence by connecting them to care. All C4C projects are crowdfunded. Any teacher in the U.S. can visit classesforclasses.org. That's classes, the number 4, classes.org. Sign up today.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And welcome back. We are with Deneen Joyner, who is a Black Indian woman born into a family of highly gifted healers from both her maternal side, the Cherokee tribe and Native American Iroquois Nation, and paternal side, Nigeria's Igbo, lost tribes of the Enri Kingdom, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Her book is Soul Wounds and Sacred Revelations, A Warrior Daughter's Awakening to Pain and Destiny. If you want to get in touch with her, you can go on her site. Deneen is D as in dog, E-N as in Nancy, E-E-N as in Nancy, J as in juice, OYNER.com, DeneneJoyner.com. And Again, this book is exceptional, and I strongly suggest to order one for yourself and one for someone in the family or a gift to a friend. I just love reading. You learn so much. It takes you elsewhere, and it grows your soul. And as everyone knows with listening to the show, that's what I believe is we are here on earth to grow our souls through all these experiences, and whether they're dark or light, we're learning as we go, and we're all in this big soup of connectedness. Whether some people realize it or not, we're all interconnected. So, Deneen, yes. Now let's talk about, and I want to say it's amazing and wonderful that your mom is a storyteller herself, sharing your ancestral stories and backgrounds so that you have an understanding of where you came from. Not everybody has that. You hear things like I mentioned earlier about our family, but you really don't know for fact. So share, you started to delved into your innermost self to find out who you were, the truth, and where all this was coming from. So discuss a little bit about that and then share about your mom.
Yes, so as, growing up, as I indicated, in my book, I was primarily raised by my mother. Her and my father actually had a very estranged marriage. He was a lot of in and out of our home. And so she primarily raised me and my siblings. And so I, growing up, and I'm sure listeners can relate, when there's just certain things that your parents deem important and they want to bring you into the fold and kind of expose you to things, most of those things that are important to them aren't important to you because you're a child. And so that was the case with me and my siblings. When my mom would have us sit at her feet and she would tell us different stories about our ancestors. And so we really didn't think anything of these stories at all. We really just wanted to hear it, get it over with, and move on to whatever we deemed was important in our little world at the time. And so that went on, well into my teens where, Mom would bring us together and tell us different stories. And so, yes, I was very blessed to have her be the storyteller of our family. My mom learned the art of storytelling from her grandmother, which was my great-grandma Lizzie. And she grew up the same way with hearing stories of our ancestors and understanding the gifts and wisdom that they carried and held. And so she, in the same tradition, wanted us to be reared in the same way. And so it wasn't until my healing journey that I become more inquisitive about who I was, emotionally, spiritually, and surrounding my gifts. I wanted to know more about these stories because I felt that there was a reason. Number one, she was sharing these stories. But number two, I also realized that there was something unknowing. There was an unconscious knowing that I needed to hear these stories afresh. And so I reached out to my mom and told her, that I was going through a healing journey and that would she just sit with me and retell some of these stories to me. And, of course, she was gracious enough to do that. My mom has since departed in 2022. Prior to that, though, we had spent a lot of time together, and she actually had handed me the baton of being the storyteller, which I hold with such high honor and regard, because it doesn't always go that way as far as the storyteller being the youngest person in the family, which I am. Out of the seven girls, I'm the youngest, and so generally that role would go to the eldest. but we had several deaths in my family, and so the two eldest daughters in the family unfortunately departed as well. And so the next in line would have been my fourth sister, but it didn't pan out that way. And so as my mom shared with me, as far as the storytelling goes, that it doesn't necessarily have to happen that way. It doesn't always go to the oldest in the family. It goes to the eldest spiritually. And that would have been me. So I hold that role in my family with the stories that have been passed on and passed down to me with all of that knowledge and wisdom. And then, one of my gifts is being able to connect to my ancestors and to be able to channel the wisdom that they hold and to be able to spiritually bring the soul healing practices that they held long ago and bring them here now and offer them to the world. So, yes.
One of the things that, there's so many sentences that pop out to me, and when she was speaking of back in the day with the slaves, the strong faith in God and circumstance equaled their strength, and then they had so much less but did so much more.
Yes.
I love that.
I do too.
Yes. I mean, I want to say it again. Your ancestors had so much less but did so much more for the future generations that were coming. And then you just were imbued into all of this energy and their messages and mission for you. Little known that this is your path, but that's really, in essence, what you have arrived to, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of all the different things that I have read, and I don't know. And then I want to say, with all of that was going on as you were going along your journey, you would, and I'm going kind of back a little bit for the listeners, that you would, because your emotional pain, when you met people for relationships, whether they were friends or colleagues or a partner, you would, with your emotional pain, just completely had like a shield in front of you so that you wouldn't be able to feel. And that is something that jumped out at me as well, because I'm a big believer that, as mentioned earlier, that we grow our souls through experiences and also to feel the heavy, the good, the bad, the wonderful. All of that is what we are to feel, because when we're in light, we're feeling completely love. Yes. And when we're on earth, we're learning through how we're feeling all these different things, which can be frightening at times, for sure. Yes. But with all that said, you met a man during this path that you were on, and you allowed yourself to feel. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I had gotten to a place in my healing journey where I opened my heart up to exploring dating. And so I did meet somebody. It was actually on a dating site, and we were highly compatible. And so that was even different for me, because I'm primarily old school. I like to meet people, in person, and not not in a way where you're meeting people online, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so that was different for me. So long story short, I did meet someone. We were compatible. We dated for a length of time, which was really good for me because it was a good test of me being vulnerable and open. And so, which was really highly irregular at the time for me because prior to that, as I mentioned, I had been really living numb, even though I was showing up, looking and appearing as though I was connected to my life, but I really was not. So this was the first time where I actually allowed myself to, be vulnerable and to allow somebody in. And so I did that, and we actually connected. We ultimately actually got married later on. And unfortunately, our relationship ended well after that. But the bottom line is that I opened myself up to something I normally would not have. And I believe had I not done that, then it would have just perpetuated the protective survival measures that I had formerly used to actually show up in relationships.
Right. Do you feel at peace now, like completely at peace with the emotional pain?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Oh, yes.
And I didn't think I could ever feel that way.
Yeah, and yet I want to say that everything that we learn along the way, that there's always something new or something that is tucked in the corner that comes up. I mean, we're always learning and growing and being better.
Yes.
I know with myself, I'm always looking to be a better person,
yes.
And yet we're on the human wave here, and all the things that happen to us emotionally or in our minds, because as you know, the ego mind is there, is really all part of the journey, and it's okay. I have found that the ego can be trained and it can be embraced, but knowing everything that we are thinking really helps. It's a tool to really bring it around to resonating in love, kindness, and compassion. How do you feel about that?
Yes, I mean, I definitely, agree. I think for most people, depending on where they are on their healing journey, I think if you can keep, in your greater and higher awareness that you're on a journey, that every day is going to look different. But if you can allow yourself to tap into the foundation of love, which for me is God, knowing that there is a higher purpose, higher reason to whatever it is that you have encountered thus far, if you can become curious, I think for sure I talk about that a lot in the book, about becoming curious about who you are, where you come from, your journey emotionally. That is going to prove to be the catalyst for you to continue to move forward each day. And that love, extends to yourself. So it's the relationship that you have with yourself first, learning that relationship that you have with yourself. I was speaking to a good friend this morning, and we were talking about how, growing up, there's certain things that you were taught, but a few things that you weren't taught was how to love yourself and how to express yourself when emotional pain and trauma actually is introduced in your life. So nobody really teaches you about expressing yourself emotionally in a healthy way, and or how to put your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts to be first and foremost before other people, because that looks to others like you're being selfish when actually you're not. And so, yes, I agree with what you're saying about, the whole evolution of understanding, love and its purpose, and truly its purpose with healing.
Right. When you think about it, Deneen, the teaching us how to be who we are and how to deal with emotional pain and all the different pieces that you were just speaking of so eloquently, that's such a missing piece in the human race. We're not taught that at home usually. No. Some are lucky enough to receive, and I know I did that with my girls, and when my husband was alive, we did that, but not everyone, and that stems from not feeling loved as a child. I wanted to make sure that my girls felt the love, but it should overflow into the schools, teaching kids how to navigate through different things. It should be more, and that really goes into the spiritual and the magnificence of who we are. It should be addressed, but unfortunately, we're kind of going the other direction. But I feel as though, and I wanted to ask you how you feel, with all this disconnection that's going on out there and the hatred and this and that and the craziness, I believe that as awful as it is a step. We're going in a different direction where there is more love and unity. How do you feel?
Yes, I actually, see what has been transpiring. This has been going on for decades.
Correct.
We've just now started to see it outwardly more and more in our face, where everybody is experiencing some facets of what I call the collective. It's a collective dark night of the soul. It is just similar to if one person was having their own dark night of the soul, which is what I described in my book that I had, so it's on a global scale. So it's the soul of humanity going through a dark night of the soul. And so similarly to that of an individual one, you're going to have those steps where things are going to look and feel really, really volatile and difficult first, because everything has to come to the surface and be released. And so that is what we're seeing and feeling right now, and it's uncomfortable. Like I described mine in the bathroom, when I was sensing and feeling mine, it's the same. And then what happens next is we start to take inventory. How did I get here? Why did this happen? And so we're not there yet. This is still decades and centuries of things happening that have been accepted and have flown under the radar that people have turned a blind eye to. So now we're in the stage and phase of release, and it has come to the surface where people have to see it whether they like it or not.
That's right, and it's in our face, and it's interesting because everyone's dealing with it in their own way, within their own psyche and their own belief systems and everything. So it's a fascinating time. Well, we need to take our next break, everyone. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment more with Deneen Joyner.
Take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition Show, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern. Our message is love in the purest form. The light within us all is a guide to recall our beginning, to learn to love self and humankind, and to feel the higher power of our own divinity. To attract love, one needs to be love. Come join us and step into this glorious vibration called love.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids Children's Book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on Feedy Baby or iTunes.
Are miracles real? Can you move from mayhem to miracles? 30 prominent authors say yes as they share their high fives and down lows of challenges, abuse, addiction, and love. Experience hope, the magic elixir of miracles, through the personal stories of New York Times best-selling authors James Redfield, Dr. Bernie Siegel, Sister Jenna, Reverend Temple Hayes, and many more. If you like bestsellers, chaos to clarity, and crappy to happy, you'll love Crying and Laughing Through Mayhem to Miracles. Sacred Stories of Transformational Hope. Available now on Amazon and in bookstores worldwide.
It's a child's job to play, to learn, and to have fun. It's an adult's job to keep them safe. Did you know that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18? Every day, families enter the Children's Advocacy Center because a child's courage to tell someone what happened to them. Keeping our children safe starts with a conversation. This is Michelle Aranger, Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Center. Learn more on how to keep your child safe. Visit cacofbc.org. This message made possible by the Fall River Rotary Club.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And welcome back. Be sure to connect with Deneen. Her website is deneenjoyner.com. Deneen, DeneenJoyner.com. Please connect with her and naturally order the book, buy a couple books, and just have them. And the other piece of it to think about is when we read a book, we gather information. When we go back to that book, say a month or 2 later, and we reread the book, we're gathering even more insight and information. So keep that in mind. I'll pick up the book periodically and read it and say, oh, wow, that is something that I didn't pick up before. So keep that in mind. I love reading. I think it's an amazing experience and tool for everyone, whether you're 4 or 104. Deneen, I'd like for you to talk about the chosen one, and if you feel as though you're the chosen one, and talk about zoning, where I've done zoning throughout your life, and really in essence is you're receiving information. But talk about both those
Sure.
The chosen one and the zoning.
Yes. So the zoning out started for me when I was little. When I was probably maybe 6 years old, I started to, I really didn't even know that it was happening because of the second nature. The only reason why I know that it was so prevalent at the time is because I was teased about it with my sisters. And so if your listeners don't know exactly what I'm speaking of, zoning out is literally when you are in front of somebody, or maybe you're even alone, and you recognize that your mind actually traveled somewhere. So you're not present in present time, but you recognize that you were gone because you see people talking to you, and then all of a sudden you reconnect to their words. And so that happened to me often, and I didn't know then that I was zoning out, and that's even what it was called, but really what was happening, because I was a child and still not far away from coming from spirit world, was literally more in spirit world than I was here in the earthly realm. And so I loved going there because my my family home was very chaotic and unpredictable. And so, rightly so, who wouldn't want to go somewhere where peace existed and you felt nurtured and it was warm and inviting versus where you found yourself, emotionally. And so that happened, and it went on, throughout my, early adult life. It was just something that would happen. And then later, what I recognized is that I could use that during meditation, and I could allow myself to connect and actually go and have the same experiences that I had when I was younger, except it elevated to the extent where as a young woman and later more mature, I started to get downloads. Whereas before it was just a place of respite, it now became a place of respite, but also a place of being able to connect to higher wisdom that was not my own. And so the zoning now continues to be a space and place that I really, really revere and honor, and it helps me to stay grounded and to help other people through their emotional pain and trauma, and to also just support them in becoming the divine, purpose and calling that has been placed on their life. With regards to the chosen one, that comes from the Native American roots on my mom's side, and the belief that there are ancestors who had been chosen to actually use their gifts in a very high way. Back then, it was actually with the tribe, and so the tribe's people and people who would find the community and come because they were going through emotional turmoil or needed to be touched and healed. And so my great-great-grandmother, Lucinda Starflower, was a chosen one, and she came to be that in a very different way that I came to be. Hers was at birth, before she was even born. There was medicine people who actually had prophecy that my great-great-great-grandmother was carrying a chosen one. And so they prepared for her birth, knowing and believing that this was so. And once she was born, it was actually identified that she, in fact, was a chosen one in that generation. And there were special spiritual markings on her feet and hands that validated and confirmed this. And so upon birth, she was reared as a chosen one. And that's a beautiful way of coming into the world, already knowing who you are and then having people to support and love you and validate that gift that is on your life. And so that's how she lived. Even though her life was short in nature, she passed and departed at the age of 20. But before doing so, she had given birth to a daughter, Lizzie, which would have been my great-grandmother. And so that is that story. And so there hadn't been anybody within the bloodline on my mother's side of the family. There hadn't been a chosen one in the family for quite some time. And during my healing journey, I wasn't aware that I was next in line as the heir until the morning that actually my healing journey came to a culmination of that knowing and being able to tap into Holy Spirit and to tap into my ancestors as well. And so it was confirmed in that time for me, which was, I believe it was in 2014 and the fall of 2014. And and it's been ever since evolution of me literally understanding what that means and how to use the gifts that I have and the wisdom that I have from my ancestors and from Holy Spirit to be able to bring all of this knowing and related to soul healing, indigenous soul healing, which is so different than, traditional therapy, into this 21st century. And so it is very, humbling to me to have this role, and, I don't take it lightly.
Wow. Well, there's so much more we haven't talked about. The work that you do now that you have received the wisdom that you have through your own journey and through your ancestors, and all how that has come together and how you work with healing others or helping them heal. So we've come to a close. Everyone, stay tuned and pay attention to when Deneen will be coming back, because she is definitely coming back. Yes. Her book is for sale, and actually, too, for the month of July, she will have the book of the month. It is, you could probably write another book. I know it wouldn't take a few days, but there's another volume here that can be written. Well, let me ask you, are you writing your second book as of yet?
I have not started it, but I've heard that so many times, and I definitely believe that there should be, definitely a sequel to the first, because so much has transpired, for sure.
Yes. And even the stories of your ancestors and how it weaves into who you are today. We haven't talked about your son or grandson. All of these things are all interconnected and weaved is the term, into your life and what you have. Well, let me ask you this, and if you can answer. Sure. Are you in awe yourself because of the time where you were standing over the sink with the pills to who and what you are today?
I am. I really am. I can really just see, the power and authority that God holds in my life and can hold in anyone's life if they truly just surrender, and get out of their own way. And I see that wholeheartedly, and being able to do that in that moment, and how it has proven to be so instrumental in who I am, and being able to know who I am, and being able to use my gifts in such a high and powerful way.
Yes, beautiful. And I have to say, speaking of beautiful, Deneen, you are a beautiful Black Indian woman.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and celebrate that. I know you are today. So everyone, buy the book. We have to run. Buy the book, Soul Wounds and Sacred Revelations by Deneen Joyner. Buy a few extra. Pass the show around. Let others have the opportunity to hear. And until we come together in love, au revoir.
Are you seeking a clearer path to love? Then tune in to the Love by Intuition show next week. All designed to your highest good. To contact Deborah Beauvais, owner of Empowered Connections, call her at 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or link on to lovebyintuition.com. Remember, we are all one, and we are all part of the miracle of love.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.